welcome back to the podcast. This time out, I'm speaking to Ivan Proctor, the frontman of indie band China Bears. China Bears is Ivan and his twin brother Fraser, along with James and Dean. They've been going since they met at college in Guildford, and we're going to talk about how their careers progressed up until now, with their band due to release their debut album Participation Trophy on the 12th of July. We're going to talk about all this, plus Ivan's going to pick his heroes. I hope you all enjoy the podcast. Please keep liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing wherever you can. But more importantly, enjoy.
A life untouched, so we both joke this will come if you stay.
On the podcast today, I've got Ivan Proctor, who is the lead singer of China Bears. China Bears are a Somerset/Guildford band due to release their debut album 2 weeks' time, the 12th of July. So we're going to talk about that, but we're going to go right through the band's career first, and then Ivan's going to pick his heroes. So what I like to do at the start is kind of get right back to the start, early life growing up, whereabouts that was, and how that kind of started your musical journey.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for having me. So for me personally, so I'm not really from a very musical family. Obviously, Fraser, my brother, plays guitar in the band, but I have a few siblings who are all musical. But in terms of everyone like above in me and our family tree, so from early on, there wasn't really much music going on. I remember my mum had like a mixtape of like Take That, which she used to play in the car. But it wasn't really until I was maybe 11 or 12. I don't know why, but my parents got me a little electric drum pad and Fraser a bass guitar.
Right.
And then our older brother, he's a bit older. So me and Fraser are twin brothers. I'm not sure if I said that. So our older brother, maybe 5 years older than us, and I don't know why, he started playing guitar and writing songs. So we would watch his band, and I think we just saw that and we're like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And we got all our early music taste from my older brother. He kind of handed down a bunch of introduced us to bands like Sum 41, Green Day, Rise Against, all that kind of stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember having like an MP3 Walkman and just listening to that. And then me and Fraser started a band at school. And we were always quite obsessed with writing our own songs. We didn't really do covers very often. I don't know why. I think in hindsight, I wish we did because we would be better players, I think, than we are now. But we never really learned um, you know, any popular songs. We just kind of always ingrained we're going to write our own songs. So that's kind of how we started about, going in from school into like late teens when we met the rest of the guys like James and Dean.
I think you find that with a lot of the bands that I've had on the podcast, they kind of say the same thing, that how they progressed to writing very early on. And
Mm.
I think maybe like you're saying, in hindsight, you would be better players maybe if you'd done covers. But if you look at the bands that are kind of making it now, they've went straight to writing their own songs. So there must be something in that.
Yeah, I think it's just talking about me, my like encyclopedia, because my parents didn't really have like records or um, I would say like diverse music taste. So,
Mm.
anything pre 90s, really, if it wasn't pop punk, like I didn't listen to like say any of like the early like the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or The Who, like big bands of of our culture. I didn't know any of those songs until much later on. So I think it's when it's talking, I don't know, maybe with other musicians or in like events where people, oh, can you play this song? Do you know this song? It's like, no, I have no idea. I can play you my song, but that's about it, unless you show me the chords.
Yeah, I've I think there's something kind of cool about that though.
Mm,
It's kind of you're all about yourself. That's the way it should be. You get a career to kind of go through, so you kind of you don't want to be
mm.
wasting it on other artists, really. Um, so you touched on that you obviously you and your brother, your twin brother, and then you met the rest of the band. So how did that kind of come about?
Um, well, like I said, so me and Fraser used to play at school together. So he plays lead guitar in China Bears, but he was kind of the front man and guitarist in this band we had at school. And to us, China Bears is the second band I've ever been in. Like we've only ever, for both Fraser and I, we didn't really haven't been in many bands, but I started to play the guitar when I was maybe 16, and I wanted to be more involved in the songwriting um, with Fraser because I would help, but I didn't really know how to help because I didn't know what the chords were or how to construct harmony or any of that stuff. So started to teach myself that as I studied music at college, so 16, 17, and then me and Fraser, that's kind of I would say the beginnings of the idea of China Bears because Fraser got pushed to lead guitar because he could play the guitar better than me. And we just started this band with the idea of wanting to write. At the time we were listening to bands like Dry the River were a huge influence on, I think we started to listen to that kind of so songs, but we want to write music like that. So we had that in mind when starting this band. And then we went to university in Guildford, and James and Dean were in our class. So we had already kind of started the idea, like I said, the idea of China Bears with a few friends back home, and then when we went to university, um, it was just kind of me and Fraser that carried on, and yeah, we went with the intention of like, uh, you know, getting this band together, and yeah, we met James and Dean, they joined, and yeah, we've just kind of been plowing along since then. But I said earlier, I think China Bears has had a lot of different formations. I feel like we've been as what I mean by that is I feel like we've been a different band, but we've just always kept the same name
Right.
over the years. So, because that would have been well 2017. So, what's that, 7 years ago? So I think if you saw China Bears 7 years ago, it's probably a very different band than it is today, but it's just the same four people in it.
Which is funny because the last guest I had in my podcast was a Newcastle band called Bear Park,
Oh yeah.
and they're basically the same lineup as well, but they changed their name
Mm.
halfway through. But they've been the same band with the same releases, but they changed their name. So it's kind of funny that two bands with the same kind of
Yeah,
with this
with the
two
bear.
two bears in a row. But so obviously you went to Guildford, and as I say, I've looked through your Instagram. Um, the first few years playing at the Boiler Room constantly,
Mm.
which still to this day, so that it's kind of became like your spiritual home, so to speak. How was it then, kind of the early days gigging and Guildford? What was it like there specifically?
Well, at the time it was, obviously we don't live there anymore, but we went to like a music university there, ACM, and we were fortunate in a sense. I find it with those sort of towns and like student towns where it really depends on the cohort and who's there at that time, because most people go and then leave. But at that time, there was a really good bunch of bands we used to play with. Um, but to be honest, a lot of them aren't around anymore, or they've gone into different projects.
Hmm.
Um, But the bands we were playing at the time it was a really like vibrant music scene. We were often playing, you know, uh, as we the beginning, like every week, like playing weekly, just kind of trying to get our chops up, testing new songs. We took a long time to release any music, actually. Looking back, we were definitely a live band, and I just want to say, I still think that's where we shine the most is live. We all really enjoy play like and have always enjoyed playing live, and we've done I don't know like hundreds and hundreds of shows. So yeah, but those early years were really great. I'm really fortunate that we still had obviously the internet, but there wasn't like I don't remember
Mm.
Instagram stories or anything like that being a thing. So there's not a lot of video documents of those times, which I'm grateful for because we were definitely figuring it out trial by fire, I guess, just figuring it out. So there's a lot of dodgy shows, but it was, it was our education. It was where we were able to, like places like the Boiler Room and the Star, which are two venues that's still going, thankfully. Um, they were really kind to us and yeah, let us play and support some of our favorite bands. We've supported the Districts, Declan McKenna, Genga.
I was
We've
going to
supported
bring
those
that up.
bands.
Declan
Yeah,
McKenna kind of sprung it to me. Another one that I seen you in a lineup with was the Dead Freights, who I've had on my
yeah,
podcast as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. We
So those two kind of sprung it to me because Declan's kind of went massive the last few
mm.
years as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely big at the time as well. I remember him being like that buzz that's still there around Declan. Um, and yeah, he's gone on to do even more amazing things, which is really great. But yeah, it was just a really cool. We had a bit of best of both. Like we could play local shows to our friends, but also have the opportunity to support some more established acts that were coming through. And um, yeah, like I said, it was just a really good education into gig etiquette and
Hmm.
working on a live show and the importance of a live show. And yeah, just trying out new songs, seeing if new songs would work live. I think that's the biggest test. Like if you're there singing it and you're not really thinking it's that good, then why would anyone in the room think it's that good? So yeah, it's really good. Really grateful for those times, fun times in Guildford.
So obviously, you said that you hadn't had like any releases for a long time. So did you have like a demo recorded that you were giving out to promoters in order to get one of these gigs?
No, actually, looking back, I don't know how we got all of these gigs. Like we didn't have a demo, we had no releases. I think it was just word of mouth. I think it was just I don't know how we convinced some of these people to put us on when you couldn't hear any of our music. We just had to describe it and just say,
Well,
oh, we're kind of
I mean, this is the thing because the reason I ask, I've just started managing a band the last 5 6 months, um, and they're due to play their fifth gig
Mm,
next week. King Tut's. So we get nothing recorded. We've got no demo recorded as yet, but yet we've played Nice and Sleazy's, King Tut's, and McCool's all in Glasgow. So they're all kind of big
mm.
milestones already, five
Yeah, big
gigs in.
venues.
And that's where a demo, which well, they're due to go in and record next month. They're due to go in and record a demo just for that purpose of getting out to promoters. But obviously, I'm kind of the same ilk where I think as long as you're out there and people are seeing you, because King Tuts are just they've just approached us
Mm.
on their own, so it can be done without having to force yourself into the music
Yeah.
until you're ready.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think like we were just so um involved in that music scene in that area at the time. We just word of mouth and just, going to other people's shit. I just think we were just a part of the community and they gave back, which is, what it's all about.
And then you kind of started kind of branching out wee sprinklings like into London,
Mm.
Nambucca and Camden Monarch, for instance, like playing to venues like that. Then how does that feel? Does that instantly feel like you're stepping up when you're going to play iconic venues like that?
I think so initially. I mean, if I'm being honest, those early London shows, I can't remember the year. I mean, I think we would still at uni or just leaving uni. But they weren't really. We played some like so the Nambuka show, for example. I think that was our first ever show in London, and like we played to I don't know like two people or something. And those Monarch shows, I remember we did a couple of them. They were pretty good. They were quite a nice, more of an intro, but I think it's the point was, it's working with different promoters. I think we learned some were good, some were bad, and we felt very fortunate actually. We met our now manager, Chris Wilson, pretty early on, maybe like a year into gigging in London, and then from there, it's just been a lot better, and like no weird promoters or yeah, there's a bit more consistency, I think, in the London scene for us, which has been good.
Yeah. So, what do you think's the benefits of having a manager then? Because there is a lot of bands that go without.
Mm. I think for us, it's just di like direction or just if you know a soundboard to bounce ideas off of. It's you know someone to kind of be working it at it as well as you with a different perspective, maybe you know someone a bit more experienced within the industry. So yeah, and like you know a lot of the opportunities we've had have you know come from like working with Chris and Fierce Panda. So um yeah, for us it's just um yeah, it's just been a good additional member to the team.
Yeah, that's what I feel like as well. I feel like I'm part of the band, and
Mm,
that's when you know. I think that you're all in the same boat. You're all thinking the same things, and you're
mm.
all pushing in the same direction. Debut single then came out 2017, Hydra. And pretty early on, you were kind of getting radio plays support for BBC Introducing, which has kind of continued throughout your
Mm.
career so far. So, how important do you think that is to have that support?
Yeah, no, incredible support. Yeah, like Hydra coming out. Like I said, because we were based in Guildford, and we still do like we go through BBC Intro. I think it was the South, now I think it's Sussex and Surrey. But Melita Dennett there over the years have been, you know, incredibly supportive. And, you know, I remember, you know, those things are huge at the time and even still like really big deals. I remember having, you know, hearing about when Hydra, all those early songs were getting played on BBC Intro and like, you know, having friends over and getting everyone to tweet in or text in. And, you know, it's like a real kind of like I said, there's like kind of milestone moments. And yeah, I'm still super grateful. I mean, Melita played one of our songs like a couple weeks ago, and
Mm.
again, and it's just really nice to have like that continued support throughout these years.
It's funny because see with the radio plays because you see so many bands kind of they'll post on saying like, we're getting a play on the radio, which I always like. I always think, oh, that's brilliant for the band. I very rarely listen to the radio though
Mm,
because Spotify and stuff like that now. And like obviously with me doing a podcast, I'm a big podcast listener as well. So finding the time to listen to the radio is
yeah, yeah.
it's really hard to fit it all in. I started recording John Kennedy's show on the
Oh
telly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
See like on the radio station on the telly. I've recorded about must be about 20 episodes and I've no went and listened to any. Just
Mm.
don't get the time. But I as I'm like to get played on radio is massive for the band. So I don't know how people I don't understand
Yeah,
how
I
people
think
can find the time to listen to it though.
I know. I think it's either in your schedule or it's not. Like, you know, you're right with Spotify and but you know, I'll occasionally have like BBC Six on, and I guess it's just tastemaker stuff, isn't it? It's just if you don't, it's another way of just finding new things. Some people that form is you know playlists on whatever DSP they listen on. Some people it's blogs. Some people it's the radio. You know, I think everyone has a preference of their how they consume media. So
Hmm.
and you know, it's still I don't know what it is, but it's just something about when you know your songs and we play on the radio. It is I don't know, it's just quite special. I think it's nice to know that someone has picked
Yeah,
your song.
because
You know, it's,
there's that many songs that they could choose. So
mm,
the fact they've chose to if they get a 2 hour show and they choose to use 3 minutes of that on you,
mm.
then yeah,
And you know, like the likes of like John Kennedy and Steve Lamacq and etc. You know, they're such like pioneers of our like, the radio industry, and like British culture. So I think it's just, yeah, you have massive respect for these people, and it's just nice, um, to, that they recognize that, oh, they've like enjoyed a song which you've written.
Mhm.
So I think that's a special thing. And but you're right. I don't know how many people are actually who, when we post it, who go and listen to it. But it really depends on how they listen to their music and stuff.
Yeah. I was going to move on as well to kind of John Kennedy and more than John Kennedy, Steve Lamacq,
Hmm.
because getting him on board as well as a supporter, did was there any influence there with the Fierce Panda signing to Fierce Panda? Because obviously Steve Lamacq's um, close pals with Simon
Mm.
Williams, obviously. So was that anything to do with that?
Um, we actually met Steve. So I think we met Chris and Simon from Fierce Panda in 2019, but we had released the f 3 songs prior to that, like off our own backs. And at the time, I remember there was Independent Venue Week, and they do like shows, like Steve Lamacq goes around all the venues and around the country, or he does a tour, and on it must have been, I don't know, 2018 or 2019, the beginning of that year. I think maybe 2018 actually. He did a one at the Boiler Room. He came to the Boiler Room,
Yeah,
and yeah, because we must have been living there at that time. And Trudy and the Romance, I remember were playing, and we supported Trudy and the Romance. So we met Stephen Mack there, had a little interview with him, and yeah, from there he played a couple of our songs on his show. He invited us to do like a live, like a Radio 6 live session, um, which is like crazy to think about back that, because we definitely you don't say no to these things, but we weren't really ready. I'm proud of what we did, but I think when I say ready, I think we didn't really have the gears in motion to capitalize off a moment like that. Like,
hmm,
like I said, we were just kind of putting out a few songs, and we weren't working towards like an EP or an album or anything like that. But no, yeah. So we kind of established that relationship with him early on, and then it just happened when we met Fierce Panda that Simon and Steve also have a quite a good friendship. So, but no, we'd met him a little bit before the Fierce Panda days, and yeah, he's continued to support us like
yeah.
with our releases on Fierce Panda since. So, yeah.
Um, 2018, obviously, you touched on. Towards the end of that year, you played Nambucca again, this feeling show. I've not seen any other this feeling shows on your your Instagram or that,
Mm.
but it's obviously like playing a this feeling show is usually a sign that you're a good band. So how was it playing that? And do you think the same? Maybe that kind of sets you in the course playing one of these shows.
Um, I think this feeling, obviously, yeah, like a really becoming like a real staple in the like the live circuit. Um, I can't really remember how that show came about. I do remember that show. I've always thought though this feeling, um, China Bears. There's like parts of China Bears that I think when I think of a This Feeling band, it doesn't really sound like us, I wouldn't say. So, um, but yeah, no, so yeah, we haven't really, not out of anything, we just haven't continued with them, but I don't think I can't really remember. It wasn't because we wouldn't do it. It was just, we did that show, and then, that was a fun show. And yeah, I think that might be it, what we've done with them. But they've continued. We've had a few things on because they do
Mhm.
their like playlisting, like a This Feeling, like a playlist on Spotify and stuff. We've had a few tracks in there. But no, yeah, I think from memory we haven't ever done another show with them. But yeah,
It's
we
funny you say that as well. That maybe you don't kind of come across as this feeling band, but yeah,
mm,
the new kind of you've done a lot of stuff with sofa sounds, which
mm,
you do seem to kind of fit that mold more. And it's funny because I wasn't really too much aware of them until maybe the last 3 or 4 episodes of the podcast. The people I've had on have all come through so far sounds.
Mm.
I've had Brian Grogan a couple of weeks back, and I think it was the other band, Bear Park, as well, that I've done so far sounds. So that seems to be kind of maybe more fitting for your style.
Yeah, well, I think with China Bears, we write like, I was reading, we're really inspired by, I mentioned like Dry the River earlier, and Bombay Bicycle Club was a big one. And those bands have kind of both sides of their like acoustic recordings and like more of the rock show. So I think we kind of we're like, go all over that spectrum. So I don't think necessarily we're that out of place at this feeling show, because we've got like those rockier songs. But then we do kind of, they're all written in like an acoustic way. So they can all be stripped down to just a guitar and a voice, or a piano and a voice, which is great for something a bit more like So Far Sounds. So,
Hmm.
and I think that's maybe one of my favorite things about this band is, we can play all these different kind of shows and it still feels like a China Bears song. So, and that's kind of how we approach songwriting. I think it could be made for all of those environments. So, but you mentioned So Far Sounds, they've been really good to us again throughout the years. They were really helpful in like the around, I say, yeah, probably like 2019. We did a lot in London that really helped push the London crowd. So yeah, no, they've been really good, and
Yeah,
we've continued to work with them.
it's something different as well, which I like. It's quite innovative.
Mm,
2019, you started off the year supporting October Drift, which seems to kind of become quite a prevalent thing over the years. Yourself,
yeah.
October Drift. So you seem to build up that kind of friendship and
Mm.
camaraderie with him. How important is that? Kind of making friends with other bands and kind of making connections that way.
Oh, it's super important, and um, so they're actually from the town next to me in Fraser. They're from Taunton, so me and Fraser are from Bridgewater, and I have a massive respect for October Drift. They're just pure grafters. They've been together since they were like at school, um, and they've actually been really influential. So prior to that gig, where we supported them, that waiting room gig actually with October Drift, was really significant for China Bears. But the summer before, Dan got in touch with us, so the guitarist from October Drift, and they'd just built their studio and they were looking to record bands. Dan wanted, they continued to like engineer bands, and we had a few songs together at that point. But I think it's time to do an EP. So we recorded that with Dan at October Drift Studio. That first EP, the I've Never Met Anyone Like You EP. And I saw Dan and October Drift at the time in that January show in 2019 had a single coming out with Fierce Panda. And I'd weirdly met Simon a year prior to that at The Great Escape. Um, but not really much. We'd kind of just had like hello, hello. It wasn't really much of an interaction, but so I was aware of Fist Panda basically, and I just messaged Dan being like, do you guys need a support for that show? And they were like, oh yeah, we have China Bears on, and that was the show actually where we met, really met Fist Panda. We met Chris, who's now a manager. Um, so yeah, that was yeah. So October Drifts have been weirdly very important part in the China Bear story, and
Mm.
those two next EPs we did after that were again had Dan involved. Like we re recorded at their studio. So yeah, and they're great guys, and they've been really nice to us and taking us out on the road with them a few times. And yeah, just great hands,
Yeah,
great people.
yeah, they're a good band. So 2019, like looking at that, it seems to be kind of where it's really kind of kicked off for you. It's like
Mm.
bringing out the EP. Like obviously you mentioned beforehand about maybe not really having a sense of direction in terms of releases, but when you know you get the EP coming out and you're kind of drip feeding a single every couple of months, it does kind of, you can see it kicking off to the point that then you go on a tour towards the end of the year and you can see as well you're playing more kind of northern shows, so you're kind of
Yeah.
getting out of your kind of bubble that you've been in so far. How was it kind of going further afield, traveling up the country and kind of playing to different audiences?
Oh, it's great, and like I think like a bit of context to that. So we had graduated maybe like the end of 2017, early 2018, I think, and then we all moved to Buckinghamshire, which is where James is from, in a town called Aylesbury. And his parents were very kind enough to let us stay in their three-bedroom house. So all four of us moved in and shared rooms, and I mean, me and Fraser even shared a bed. But we just didn't know what to do after uni, and then we were playing everywhere. We were trying to play all around, and it gave us the freedom to kind of be able to like work part-time jobs and still and just tour. And a lot of those shows were probably like not very good, or I think if like 1 out of 10 was like a good show, but it kind of got us into the mindset of like driving, coming back, working, driving, coming back, and
Hmm.
then we kind of did that EP, and then that whole tour was set like self-booked. I kind of worked really hard into just like, and because we had an EP coming out, I think that gave us a reason to tour. So venues, and maybe off the back of how the other releases had done prior to that, perhaps with the BBC support and Steve Mac and stuff. Yeah, we were able to kind of get a tour together. I think it was like 16 dates or something. It was a long tour. And yeah, it was great. It was like our first ever, I would say, like, although we had been around playing loads all over, this was like a consecutive date. Like we were touring, we were on the road for 2 weeks. Um, and yeah, it was so fun. Like it was like our first ever kind of experience of like long, like it was long for us at the time, like long
Hmm.
touring. Um, and yeah, it was great. We visited like I think that was our first time. I don't think we'd hit Scotland on that tour, but I think we went.
Yeah, that was
I,
coming. That was
I think
coming the next year, soon enough.
yeah, I think we went as far as Newcastle. But it was great. We visited loads of new places. I think maybe we had only played four of those cities before, so we went to loads of new places. We didn't really have much expectation. We've always been quite like I would like to think we've been quite we've managed our expectations quite well. Like we were just happy to be there, and there were good turnouts from what I remember. Like it wasn't like we played to empty rooms, so people were coming out. It wasn't, rammed or anything like it was, not everywhere wasn't like as busy as maybe places we had played more often, but it was really good. It was just really fun. Um, and kind of I think really it was a nice way to round off that year.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, like 20, I think 2019 for me is definitely like a year which I see um the band, like I remember that being quite like a felt like the wheels were turning that year. Um and we were like becoming a band, I think. And if people came to a show, we would be like, oh yeah, this is China Bears. Like we figured out how we wanted to sound now and who we wanted to be with that EP. So and the shows they weren't like we weren't making stupid mistakes, or we weren't coming on drunk or anything like that. We That was all kind of out of our system. We were like, no, we want to take this seriously and actually put on a good show, and people have come paid money
Hmm.
to come see our band. So we wanted to make it like something to go home and talk about and for people to come back. So yeah, and we've kind of maintained that ethos since then. Yeah, it was a really good tour.
And if 2019 feels like the kind of start of something, and then you get into 2020, right at the start of the year, you had another tour, and this is a tour where you did come to Scotland, you played King Tut's. So,
Hmm.
obviously, we mentioned King Tut's briefly earlier, but did you realise how iconic a venue that was, and how was it playing there, and what was that like? What was that packed? Was that all right for you?
Yeah, no, that was great. Like, so I'm actually a little bit of a nerd. I really like venues, and like I actually really enjoy, like I said, booked like most of the shows, and I really enjoyed that, and like the history of venues. So I was definitely aware of and I was very excited to be playing King Tut's. And yeah, we went out with because we haven't actually really supported like been on tour supports. We've supported bands on their tours at the odd show, but not very often have we been out with a band on the road. So a band called Geneva took us out for 3 dates. I think we did like Brighton, London, and yeah, we did Scotland on that one. And that was our first time, yeah, up in Glasgow. Um, yeah, like King Tut's, and yeah, that was great. I remember just and I still feel this, whenever we go somewhere, I'm like, we're here because we decided to write some songs, and we get to see like this room and play to these people. And I remember that show being really fun. A lot of my favorite bands are Scottish, so I was kind of like well excited to be playing our music. And I think I would say our sound is kind of influenced like that. So yeah, I was really pumped to be in Glasgow playing China Bear songs.
Well, I mean, one of my kind of the bonuses of being a manager and going about with the band is you get to get into these green rooms. They're not usually very big or whatever.
Mm.
So what's the King Tut's one like? Is there graffiti and all that in the walls? I'm
If
gonna
I'm being
look
honest, I
up.
actually can't remember. I don't remember it being, so that's probably it wasn't, maybe it was quite small, maybe we didn't go in there much. But I
I
can't,
was gonna check it out next week and see if
um,
China bears are plastered over the walls or anything like
I don't really remember going into a green room, but
that.
I could be wrong. Uh, but yeah, we've only been that once. I remember walking up the stairs and you can see all of they have
The
like all of
names on the
the
stairs.
history of the bands that have played there. So you instantly know the significance of where you are, I think, and particularly as like if you're in a band, like I think that's really, that's magical, like knowing like who's played there and uh, what those four walls have seen. So
Yeah,
but you'll have to find out next week.
I'll have a look and
But
I'll let you know.
yeah,
Eh,
let me know.
so like kicking off the year in style playing tuts,
Mm,
and then you had South by Southwest fundraisers because you were going to South by Southwest, and then COVID came
hmm
and ruined that. So I mean, South by Southwest is massive. Spoiler alert: you got to play it later on, but the build up to that to then have it taken away for you, how did that feel? It must have been like a gut punch.
Yeah, for sure. Like it was, I think initially I remember we were actually at a So Far Sound show. I think we were playing a So Far where Chris sent the email actually and said, um, about it. And I remember that like initial, like, oh man. I think not only was it like sucks that we couldn't do it, I think it was just kind of an insight to, oh, actually, with COVID and the state of the world, like at that time, like, oh no, I think like, this is, because when this would have been maybe mid-February, so we would only been like maybe 4 weeks out from a lockdown, and I think from that point, I was like, oh, actually, this is really serious. Like, with COVID and the
Hmm.
pandemic, I was like, oh, this is really serious. I think this is gonna begin to shut down everything. Um, so it was just it was a an accumulation of all of that really. It was like not only saying goodbye to South by, but also bracing for like, oh, I think this is gonna when it obviously ended up doing all of that. So but yeah, no, it was and but like from that you kind of accept, oh no, as it okay, that was the right call, and obviously, and but and like you said, we were fortunate to go back to get the opportunity. um and I think deep down I knew that. I think I was like, oh, it's okay. Um,
Hmm.
although we're quite, if you listen to our music, we're, I don't know, it's not the jolliest, but we're quite optimistic people, I think. And it's like I was just, oh no, it will be okay. Our time will come. It's not this time, but it's blind faith. I think it's delusion, but you have to have it.
Eh, so in terms of releases then, like you were going towards another EP,
Mm.
which you released kind of three singles throughout the year, and then the EP didn't kind of materialise until like a year later, like
Yes, yeah.
the final EP. So was that down to COVID? That
Yeah, I think we had started that EP. We had done a few songs. Um, if I'm being honest, I would like I think I've Never Meant to Like You was really written as like an EP. We had that in mind, whereas I think those next that like Statue Still, it was more just a collection of songs. We didn't really get a chance to finish it how we had planned because obviously couldn't see one another and but we had it like ready to go, like a few of those songs ready to go. So okay, well we'll continue the release cycle uh throughout those lockdowns just to kind of keep
yeah,
keep
keep it
some
ticking over.
yeah keep some t like keep it ticking over. Um and then yeah then I remember we came out of the lockdown uh and we were I remember having this must have been like early 2022, kind of when the world was opening up again. I remember us saying, do you think we should do an album or do you think we should um do another EP basically? I remember having that conversation with the band and Chris and we were like, okay, let's make one more EP um just to kind of maybe pick things back up again because for personal reasons like there were some bereavements and throughout the lockdowns and so and just dealing with all of that we I think we made a choice like we'd kind of taken a step back a little bit to deal with
Hmm.
all of that and so we sort of came back together and decided to do an EP again and like kick that and like get the ball rolling again a bit and then move on into an album. But I think if the lockdowns hadn't happened, we probably would have had an album by now. But I'm not. It's the way it happened, and I'm proud of like what we've. So it's just the way it went down. So
Yeah. Again, like most of the bands that I've had on the podcast, kind of COVID in some ways been kind to
mm,
them. I mean, like a lot of these bands are starting out, so it gave them the time to kind of
mm,
make their mistakes, hone their craft and such. But maybe for yourselves in the position you were in, it might have been more kind of the opposite way, where you were ready to kind of push on, and then to take kind of like a year and a half out
mm.
can be a bit of a block.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Uh, it did feel a bit like that, but then also. we what the lockdown was good was it kind of made us, if we weren't there, like I was sort of talking about the 2018, 2019, although they were great years, they were pretty full on in terms of like I said, we were living on top of one another. At that point, we had all kind of moved away from one another. I was back home and Fraser and I were back home. So throughout the lockdown. So I didn't see the guys for like I think a year and a half, like actually in person. Um, so uh, I think it just kind of made us like we knew like oh no we've really missed this. We really want to do this.
Mm.
And we entered the lockdown all like 23 and I think we came out like whatever it would in 25, 26 and at that point it was like a weird like in your 20s as I'm sure it's different for everyone. Some people were you know in careers and have maybe a bit more of their life on a path and other people are kind of figuring it out and I think it felt different leaving it like coming out of the ages we were and being like, no, I think we need to double down. This is what we want to do. So um, it kind of put it into perspective as well, which was good. Gave us time to like again write songs. We kind of learned how to record ourselves. So we were in that following EP, the All That Distance EP was very like we kind of did a lot about ourselves. We taught ourselves on, YouTube and stuff like well, how to mix, how to record, I didn't really know how to work an amplifier, embarrassingly, before that. And we had done like hundreds of shows. It's embarrassing how I didn't really know what EQ was. I just plugged in and played. But I just kind of taught myself all of that. Like what is reverb? I kind of taught what's distortion and got a bit more involved because that was frustrating in those early EPs, like not being able to, when we were getting mixes back, not being able to explain why it didn't sound like the way we had in our heads. And, we were very reliant on the mix engineer. I'm not saying they did great jobs, but it was just we just couldn't critique as we didn't have the vocabulary basically. So
Yeah.
we spent that time learning that. So the drums just have too much compression, or there's too much high end on that. We just taught ourselves a bit more. So we made use. I hope I like to think we made good use of that time. Um, so we just weren't touring basically, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes and stuff. So
Right.
in some ways, it was nice to slow down. In other ways, obviously, it was not.
So along with that EP, all that distance EP, you finally managed to do South by Southwest.
Mhm.
Um, I've had a couple of bands, another Fierce Panda band. I think the Manatees. I think they played it. I've had them on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I had a Newcastle band, the PV Wonders, who also played it last year. So for a band like yourself, what sort of costs go into South by Southwest? Obviously, you did the fundraising gigs the year
Mhm.
before. So what sort of costs are involved in going all the way to America?
Loads really. I mean, there's flights. We hired out gear. It's like instruments and stuff. So flight and accommodation, and then just like you know, money when you're there, like transport, taxis and stuff. Um, so we went twice. So we went just this March.
Hmm.
Um, we went in 2022, and that was we'd kind of already paid for it because we'd had it all paid for in 2020.
Right.
So that one felt a bit easier because we were ready to go. So I think we only really lost a bit of money on accommodation with that cancellation, but we had the flights in like vouchers, if that makes sense,
Well,
they let
that's
us.
not too
Uh,
bad.
so we kind of already had that paid for, and we were very fortunate both times actually with the fundraisers and the time just gone. There's a town called Tame in Oxfordshire, sorry. Um, and they did this when we were living near there. We played this. They did like a monthly music night. Um, I think it's called the First Thursday Music Club. It's and it's just this little pub in Tame in a little town. They all love South by. So we
Right.
went. We did a fundraiser show there, and they gave us like $1,000 or something the first time, and then we did one just before we went this year, and they were finishing the night. The night had been running for 14 years, or this event had been running, this monthly event, and this was the last one. So we played their last ever one. And again, they very generously, I think they gave us like 2.5 grand. They were like, we want it to go to you towards this trip. So we've just been very fortunate that they donated that money, and we'd obviously this time we knew we were going to go, so we saving from our jobs and stuff. So but yeah, both times we didn't get funding from like PRS, so we were unsuccessful in those applications. So we had to like find other means. And but yeah, no, it was like a lifeline, really. I think um, yeah, within this band, money comes and money goes. It's always been like, oh, we need money, and then we somehow always figure it out. Like I was saying earlier, like
Yeah.
delusion and blind faith, which is, but we went, like I said, this year, and that definitely felt like my brother Fraser put it quite well. I think in 2022 it felt like we were on the outside looking in at South by Southwest, whereas this time it felt like we were there and we were part of the festival because we had like the British Music Embassy slot, and we had like an album to promote now. Um, and I think we just established ourselves a bit more as a band. Whereas last time we were coming out of lockdown, I think we were kind of finding our feet again a bit. Uh, and we kind of only really got in because Fierce Panda had a had a stage. So it felt like we'd snuck our way in really, and
Yeah.
it became a little bit like a holiday, and like we had like I think 2 shows on that festival, whereas this time we played like 6 or 7 shows um in like 5 days. So uh yeah, it was a lot busier, and um so yeah, and it was really it's a really great, it's really um again, I was saying earlier, it's that you find yourselves in these places sometimes. I can't believe this band has got us to America. We're playing in Austin, at like a festival which I've, you know, uh, have huge admiration for growing up, and like, seeing like lots of my favorite. I remember watching Austin to Boston, like a little documentary. I think it's like with Ben Howard and stuff, and that's where I first heard of South by Southwest, and I was like, oh, I would love it one day if our band played there, and yeah, we're lucky enough
Yeah, yeah,
to have been part of it.
it's definitely something to have and to have ticked off.
Mm,
You look at these, as I say, like this feeling, like you've done a this feeling show, you've played South by Southwest, you've done so far, you're ticking all the boxes, so you're going the right way.
mm,
It just does seem natural. Obviously, towards the end of the year, you done Merit October Drift Supports, you played the Great Escape, which seems to become a reoccurrence as well, playing the Great
hmm
Escape Festival. Back to Scotland again, you did Edinburgh and Glasgow this time, you did Sneaky Pete's and Broadcast. So another busy year. And then looking at 2023, that doesn't seem to be as busy, like release wise. There's nothing get released 2023. It just seemed to be more live stuff then.
mm.
So
Well,
is that on?
2020, we kind of so it rounded off 2022, yeah, like with the last EP, and that tour, like I said, where we branched up to Scotland a bit more, and I think we finished the year off with a few like acoustic shows in like London and stuff, and then so we entered 2023, so the beginning of last year, like we just said it's time to do an album. We're like, we need to do an album this year. The next thing is an album. We had no idea how on earth we were going to do that, really. Um, so in terms of release schedule or funding or any of that, we were just like, time to do an album. We want to do an album. So we just had that in mind. So we were kind of like, let's um leave the tour. Like we were kind of said, if things come up, we'll play. If like if the shows come in, but we were kind of maybe not booking headline shows, like spend more time writing.
Hmm.
Um, and we played The Great Escape 2023. Well, our manager basically, Chris, he had gone to South by because Fierce Panda still had, and they continued to have like a stage there. Um, and when he was there, he reconnected with Rod Jones from Idlewild,
Hmm.
and like Post Electric Artists. So Rod's that his management company had a showcase out there. So him and Chris kind of reconnected, and then Chris kind of came back like, oh, I think we did a couple of shows. I remember him, and we were playing in Bury St Edmunds, which is near where Simon Williams is from, and he came to the show and he was telling me so of Fierce Panda, and he was saying, "Oh, Chris has just been to come back from South by. He's saying I think Rod Jones would be a really good uh fit for like recording the album and a producer because to that point we hadn't really worked with a producer. Everything had kind of been self-produced and stuff. So we played The Great Escape kind of just to meet Rod because we knew Rod was going to be there. So we'd arranged a meeting with Rod, um, and we kind of managed to get an old show just to kind of Rod to come see it live. So we had met Rod, and then we were talking to him, and he was talking about how he would let he was enjoying the songs and how if he was to do the album, how he would do it and stuff. And I was just like, oh, this is like a real out like the way he wants to record this album is like how I would have always dreamed to do an album. And but there hadn't really been any talks of like a deal or anything like that. Like in my head, I was like, I was adding up the figures of like what Rod wanted to do, and I was like, okay, okay. And I was looking at like the guys like I can't afford this, and then yeah, then like so but then Fierce Panda basically were like, no, we want to do the album and as well, and we can advance this like give you some money to advance this record. Um, and yeah, so we kind of just remained knuckling down over the summer, writing these songs and preparing them. We went up to the studio in uh, October, end of October last year, up to Edinburgh to Rod's studio. in Leaf Post Electric Studios, and yeah, we just so last year was basically it was a lot behind the scenes, just working on like the album really. So we went up and re recorded that, did 2 weeks up there, and yeah, honestly, not a bad word to say about that experience. It was amazing, to be honest. It was one of the best times I've had in the band.
Right. That sounds amazing. Eh,
Mm.
so obviously then getting into this year, then that so you started kind of drip feeding singles into which is kind of culminated last month with the EP.
Hmm.
So I take it that those songs will feature on the album.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not. I think Spotify just calls it an EP, but it's not. Because people kind of ask that, but I think as a when you package it on a streaming
Is that
platform,
how
it's
it works now? You put four
yeah.
songs out and they just automatically EP
I
it.
guess so. Yeah, but it's just four singles from the record, so they'll all be on.
So
Excuse me. They'll all be on the album. Yeah.
what else? Well, firstly, before I ask what else we can expect for the album, like for people that haven't heard China Bear before, how would you kind of describe the sound?
How I would describe the sound. It's definitely lyrically driven. Um, I guess authenticity maybe is at the heart of what we write. So it's lyrically, but it's guitar, it's indie rock, I guess, but more in the when I say indie rock, that's a huge umbrella, isn't it? So less like twinkly, like Foles-esque stuff. It's more kind of, I would say, Frightened Rabbit, Big Thief, The National, that side of indie rock. I would
Mhm.
say like retrospective and uh yeah, as opposed to like I'd say, the Two Door Cinema Club start, that side of the indie rock spectrum because it's such a huge
Mhm.
spectrum. But yeah, that kind of stuff. So um they're kind of like songs you could play on the piano, but just disguised as rock songs, I
Right.
would say.
Yeah, obviously, like previously, you mentioned kind of you get a lot of your favourite bands are Scottish,
Mm,
um, and a lot of the sound I got for it, obviously you mentioned Frightened Rabbit. I kind of get a lot of that for like lyrically. Uh,
mm,
it's kind of get that lyrical style. Musically, some of it sounds obviously maybe with Rod Jones producing it. There is a bit of Idlewild sound to some of it as well. And another
mm,
Scottish band, the Delgados. Um, it's kind of got a bit of that to it, which I like.
mm.
Um, at times as well, I think it can go poppier as well. Maybe no like pop, but like Codaline, for instance, or maybe
Yeah.
Embrace. It's kind of got
Mm.
that about it as well. Um, I'm mega impressed with what I've heard, and I'm really looking forward to the album. Um, as we say, there's these four songs. Is any different direction throughout the rest of the album?
I think these four songs maybe showcase the um like the diversity of the album. I think it's definitely um you know we've released some like really kind of rock, I would say more like rock kind of rages, I would say, as for China Bear standards anyway. And then some softer, like we just released a song called Gracie just over a week ago, and that's definitely more of that kind of softer, really lyrically driven,
Hmm.
melodic. But yeah, no, so there's like a full range. There's some like we were lucky to have like full brass sections on this song, on some of these songs. Some are like really more delicate. So I think there's a nice thread throughout all of the songs. And yeah, honestly, like really excited to have it come out. It's 13 tracks. Um, so we've released four so far. So there's loads of new songs
Yeah,
to delve into. And yeah, something for
yeah.
everyone, I like to think.
I'm looking forward to it. And
Mm,
if my listeners go and listen to your back catalogue before this comes out, I'm sure they'll be the same.
mm,
Um, and obviously coming up then towards the end of the year, you're touring in October
mhm.
as well. So the one I picked out obviously is the 3rd of October. You're back in Glasgow playing broadcast again, so I'll be looking to go to that.
Yeah, nice.
But I'll put ticket links up for your tour when that's out, and I'll put a link up for the album for people to go and see it. Is there anything else coming up that you're able to tell us, or is it just kind of focusing it in on the album now?
Yeah, really just the album now. So obviously, well, where are we at today? Like yeah, just over 2 weeks off. So we've got that. We're announcing I think later today, so this will be out by the time this comes out, I imagine. We're doing like a Banquet Records in London in store. That's the only in store we're doing for the album. And then yeah, then we just got the tour come October. Yeah, we're just really focusing on pushing that tour, and this album and just seeing where it goes. I think it's the best thing we've done so far as a band. I think I'm just excited to have be a band with an album out. I think it's gonna like you know put us in like uh yeah, people actually finally have who some of the people like followers who have been with us since those Guildford days. They finally have an album, a
Yeah,
China album to listen to, and I think more importantly, it will reach a whole new audience of people who enjoy China Bears. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited to
I
put it out
think
and
I
share it with
think just
everyone.
having an album it makes you seem like more professional. Again, obviously that as I mentioned, that band for Newcastle, Bear Park, they were the same. Like they had maybe 5 or 6 singles, and then they're like,
Mm.
no, we just want to put an album out because it's. But there's not that many bands do it now. A lot of
Yeah.
bands just drip feed singles, maybe a single a month or something. So
Yeah.
with bands like yourself bringing out albums, it kind of it focuses
Mm.
the mind. Bring more albums back. That's
Well, I
that's
think,
what I grew up with.
yeah, like I that's how I consume music. Like I'm very album focused. Like if a band puts out a record, I will listen to it start from finish. I know that's not how everyone consumes
Mm.
music, and that's fine if you don't. But I think like that's my favorite way of, because there's a lot of thought that's gone into the order of the songs. Like it's not just random, and I like to hear it how, you know, the person intended. And yeah, I think with this album we can have a vinyl. So there's like actually the first like other than like a really like a physical thing to listen to our music on. And yeah, it just kind of like you said, cements you as a band. I think like having this record, um, yeah, it's like something we've always dreamed of. And you're right, like with this day, like people are like, oh, is it even important anymore? Because you could just drip feed singles on Spotify, but we're also not necessarily a singles band. Like
Yeah,
the music we write, some of it is like I really like quote unquote album tracks. They're not supposed to be super flashy and have you hooked within the first 4 seconds. It's about taking the time with it and the song develops. And yeah, so I'm really excited to have this body of work that showcases loads of our influences and all sides of China Bears. And we've never had that opportunity before in like a um in terms of a release, um where we've got 13 songs we've had on this album. So yeah, I think it's gonna uh please uh people who like our songs hopefully. So I'm excited to see how
yeah.
it all goes
I
down.
hope it does, man. I wish you all the best. And
Mm.
the last part of the podcast, obviously, when called Time for Heroes, I asked my guests to pick 4 heroes to come for dinner. Why are they your heroes, and what would you cook them as well?
Yes.
So sometimes just that question about what you would cook them, that seems to put the fear
Mm.
of God into people. But
Are we talking a 3-course meal? Or are we talking just the main?
not usually.
Mm.
Obviously, I've had a couple of guests I've went 3 course meal, but
Mm.
I'm quite happy with um
Okay.
just one.
And are all of these guests going to be present?
Up to
Everyone?
you what you want to do. Some
Okay.
people invite them all individually. Some
Okay.
people kind of think about how they'll interact with
Yeah, yeah.
one another. So it's entirely up to yourself.
I think I'm going to choose to have them all there. Um, obviously some aren't here unfortunately anymore, but I think I'd have Adrian Lenker there, um, and Scott Hutchinson of Frightened Rabbit,
Hmm.
specifically because I would talk those their ears off about writing and music and all of that, and I think they'd be really funny. I'd also have um, just because I think they'd be quite they'd bring a new energy to the table. Michael Cera, the actor,
Hmm.
I'd have him, and then I'd have Larry David, because I think that would be really funny to have Larry David of Seinfeld and everything and Curb. I think those four people would interact very well with one another, and I would cook them. I'm just gonna go main. Um, I make it depends on who you ask, I guess, but I like to think I make a good vegan carbonara.
Right.
Um, so I would make them that, and hopefully it goes well. And yeah, that's what I
I'm
would do.
pretty sure there was somebody not that long ago picked a vegan carbonara as well. It seems to
Yeah,
be the popular choice right now.
yeah. Well, I don't measure. That's my problem. I'm a very like measure by eye. So that's why I say sometimes it's been successful, but you can make the cheese of like, or the sauce, sorry, with like tofu, oat milk, a bit of nutritional yeast, and add some vegan cheese into it. But like I said, I'm just by eye, so sometimes I don't get these measurements right. But when I get it good,
Yeah.
it's a nice creamy sauce, but other times not so good.
Well, hopefully this is a good one for your guests.
Yeah, yeah.
Scott Hutchison, obviously, like picking him out specifically, it's like I didn't really understand Frightened Rabbit until
Mm.
after he was gone, and that's when I kind of went back and listened.
Yeah. I was
And
quite similar really. Like I've always liked them, but I remember I'd only heard the latest record, like Painting of a Panic Attack, and I really enjoyed that. And I saw them a few times at festivals, but I never went to any of their like actual shows. And I remember listen at the time, weirdly, like when his disappearance and then sadly his passing, I was working at a Waitrose, real early mornings, and I was listening. I was going through a breakup, and I had the Midnight Oil fight on, and I that first time I'd heard that album, and I was listening to the album daily, to be honest, like every morning, because it was I found it really helpful. And then he it was at that time he passed, and I really felt like I lost a friend. It was the first ever
yeah,
death of a celebrity, a celebrity where it really affected me. I was like, it feels like a part of me is gone too, and yeah, but forever grateful for the music he and Frightened Rabbit wrote. And you was talking earlier about lyrics. It really that album really did change how I wrote lyrics, because I think what I was taken aback by was just how honest he was, and I was
yeah,
too scared to be that honest in songs. And then I was like, wait, but that's what I love about these songs is because they're so honest. So why am I not doing that? Um, and it really changed how I yeah wrote
yeah.
songs and
And obviously that's why people love those songs because of
mm,
their honesty. So you know that kind of being more authentic is probably going to be
yeah, for
the
sure.
same effect for
Yeah.
yourself.
And I think that's why I said, earlier, like, that's um if no one heard these songs, we'd still be writing them. It's not about, yeah. And I think when you ask yourself that, like, would you still do it if it wasn't gonna, no one's gonna hear it? Like, it's like, yeah, it's just a way of expressing what you need to express, and it's our outlet. Some people like running, some people like, I don't know, eating and whatever. But ours, I like but one of those things. But but for mine, it's it's yeah, writing songs and um yeah, also really grateful for that. Like I couldn't imagine what people do. How do people get what's going on in their heads? How do they deal with that if they can't write it down on paper and sing about it? Yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, taking the time out today. As I wish you all the best for the album. It's called Participation Trophy, and it's out 12th of July. So all the best with that, and hope to see you on tour towards the end of the year. But for coming on the show today, thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been really good to talk to you. And
Brilliant.
yeah, thanks for plugging the album, and hopefully see you in Glasgow come October.
Cool. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ivan.
Cheers, mate.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.